What would you do if wild nature showed up at your home asking for help? This amazing real story will bring back your belief in kindness between all living things. One icy winter morning in Montana during the coldest weather anyone had ever seen, David Carter woke up all of a sudden. He checked the temperature gauge on his porch and was shocked by what it read. It displayed -54 degrees. The air wasn't simply cold. It was lethally freezing. The freeze was so severe that every blade of grass and tiny leaf wore a shimmering coat of ice. Everything appeared locked in place like glass. David had spent his entire life in Montana and believed he could face any winter. But this was completely different. A strong chill ran through his entire body when he witnessed this awful temperature. He carefully prepared a hot cup of coffee to warm himself and switched on the TV to see the forecast. But the fierce wind outside, creating mournful, never-ending noises, drew his focus from the television. Standing shocked at his large window, gazing out, he saw the wind wasn't simply pushing snow. It was forming it. Large mounds of snow were lifting up, twisting wildly into high white columns that shifted and turned over the ground like phantom figures in a wild, snowy ballet. It was frightening yet stunning simultaneously. But then something occurred that chilled him more than the freezing air. Right when he believed this odd morning couldn't become stranger, he let out a gasp and let go of his steaming coffee mug. It shattered on the ground, coffee spreading all over. But he paid no attention because beyond the heavy frozen glass, he witnessed something that appeared unreal. A view so improbable it seemed like a nightmare. Positioned directly beside his window with golden tan fur coated in ice was a female bobcat. Her smooth, muscular form was trembling terribly from the awful freeze. And here's the remarkable thing. She had company. Directly behind her, appearing like a tiny mound of quivering snow-dusted fur, were 3 small baby bobcats. They were nearly invisible against the pure white snow. Their small frames trembled violently, too frail to resist the elements. Their faint, pitiful sounds were nearly drowned by the relentless roaring of the wind. Then, in a shocking instant, the tiniest baby abruptly collapsed. Its frail, delicate form lay twitching in the snow, obviously ready to surrender to the merciless, bitter cold. But here's when things became truly amazing. The female bobcat, as though she understood time was almost gone, began to act. With an explosion of pure survival drive, she gently grasped the tiniest baby by its neck scruff and carried it straight to the window. Her actions were precise, resolute, yet also extremely soft. Everything in her manner revealed a mother's fundamental drive to save. She gently pressed the small trembling form against the freezing glass, her own breathing quickly creating mist on the pane. Then she gazed up directly at David. Her eyes, resembling pools of glowing amber, blazed with urgent pure longing. They were imploring him. A wordless, piercing appeal for rescue that struck straight to his core as though to demonstrate how critical this moment was. The wind outside shrieked, wailing louder still, hurling fistfuls of snowflakes at the window with harsh, forceful cracking noises that mirrored the total despair of the situation. David remained motionless, his pulse pounding fiercely in his chest like a caged creature. He had never throughout his existence witnessed anything remotely like this. Then the female bobcat raised a front paw, lifting it with deliberate intent. She knocked it on the window, creating a gentle, rhythmic click, click, click as her nails met the glass. It wasn't accidental. It was intentional. It seemed she was attempting to communicate a distinct message, a fundamental appeal for him to at last comprehend. David paused. "This cannot be real," he murmured to himself. Allowing wild, threatening creatures into his dwelling. It was the absolute last thing he would have pictured doing. Panic seized him. But then he observed that fallen, shaking baby and the mother's urgent eyes. He understood absolutely that without action right now, that small existence wouldn't survive the coming moments. His knees felt unsteady and wobbly, but he forced himself to approach the entrance. His thoughts were whirling with panic and profound doubt. He arrived at the entrance, his hand trembling, and cracked it open slightly. And this is what truly stunned him. The female bobcat didn't leap backward. She didn't flee. Rather, she quickly carried the fragile baby straight to the narrow gap, placing it softly at the entrance. Then, she deliberately withdrew as though to prove she posed no threat and wouldn't charge in. Her intense amber eyes remained locked on his, still brimming with that pure blend of longing and urgency. He was unable and unwilling to turn away. David knelt down, his chest aching, and gently lifted the small baby. Its fragile form seemed so weightless, scarcely warmer than the vicious ice beyond. He tenderly brought it indoors to the gentler air. The female bobcat observed his every action closely. Then she deliberately glanced toward the two remaining babies, still clustered together, trembling in the bitter snow. She returned her gaze to David, her wordless pleading appearing entirely obvious. It was an implicit appeal. "There are others, my little ones," David whispered softly, grasping her meaning. His initial panic, now overtaken by a surge of profound compassion, didn't hesitate this time. He pushed the entrance wider, signaling for her to transport the others. And she obliged. With the identical precise, deliberate actions, she carefully nudged the second baby, then the third, to the gap. When all three small shivering babies were at last indoors, positioned clumsily on his ground, David hesitated once more. The female bobcat stood prepared at the entrance, the wind shrieking surrounding her, snow whirling fiercely against her coat. She lingered, a wilderness animal requesting approval to step into a person's dwelling. David observed her splendid ice-laden shape, the defenselessness in her gaze, and at last gave a nod, withdrawing entirely, welcoming her inside. "Come right in," he spoke gently. "It's all right." She proceeded with extraordinary elegance yet clear wariness, pausing just within to deliver a swift shake, releasing a spray of ice fragments from her coat before advancing completely into the wonderful heat of the dwelling. And here's when it became genuinely astonishing. She didn't burst in like a frightened wilderness creature. Not remotely. It appeared she somehow recognized she was a visitor, a displaced one. She remained near her cherished babies, her actions controlled and cautious. She even brushed lightly on a piece of furnishing, almost delicately, as though examining the edges of this unusual new environment. David, still astonished by the total impossibility of what was unfolding, rapidly collected every covering he could locate. He arranged and piled them beside the crackling fireplace, creating a thick, cozy refuge for the surprise guests. The female bobcat didn't delay. With soft nudges of her skull and snout, she directed her shaking babies to the comfortable warmth, then meticulously organized the coverings with her paws and snout, ensuring her young ones were as cozy and secure as achievable. But then something genuinely wonderful occurred. The female bobcat shifted her attention back to David. Her amber gaze, no longer containing solely urgency, was gleaming with an almost unexpected human-like appreciation. It seemed that expression penetrated directly into his spirit. In that instant, he experienced an unanticipated warmth develop in his core. A profound, mysterious bond to this wilderness creature that he couldn't conceivably describe or reject. Beyond, the tempest maintained its perpetual fierce assault. The wind still wailing like a group of starving wolves on the hunt. But within, inside the boundaries of David's dwelling, the mood started to ease, transforming into a delicate, valuable, protected space against the harsh disorder beyond. Gradually, cautiously, the babies, instants earlier trembling and feeble, started to stir. The tiniest one, nestled furthest in cozy coverings nearest to the flame's heat, released a small, mournful sound. It was the initial noise David had detected from them since their entrance, so faint, yet it occupied the whole space with an intense surge of optimism. David observed in quiet awe as the female bobcat bent down, her coarse tongue gently washing each of her babies successively, heating them, restoring vital life back into their tiny frames. And listen to this. Regardless of being wilderness creatures, these small babies displayed a remarkable, almost incredible degree of tranquility. They remained gathered near their mother, their large, interested gazes occasionally glancing to David, yet entirely lacking any fright. It appeared they somehow recognized they were protected here, as though they believed in him entirely. Time appeared to decelerate and fade as David remained and merely observed the astounding scene occurring before him. The flame glow moved and shimmered over the bobcat's coat, producing a comfortable golden radiance that contrasted so sharply from the frozen, barren realm howling beyond. Each individual action of the female bobcat was precise, loving, her age-old drives flawlessly keen, concentrated wholly on shielding and tending to her offspring. The tiniest baby, now visibly healthier, even released another gentle noise. This one was fuller, more assured, as it nestled further into the heat with its siblings. David was unable to shift his attention, experiencing profound awe, as though he was observing something simultaneously powerfully primal and profoundly holy. The tempest kept raging beyond, a violent wilderness power. But within, a delicate, unvoiced calm, a significant connection was silently starting to develop. The female bobcat gazed at David once more, her stare remaining, this occasion, capturing his gaze. It was an expression that appeared to convey everything, displaying a level of appreciation that no person's language could possibly hope to express. David, still grasping the vacant, neglected coffee container in his grip, experienced a sudden, surprising constriction in his windpipe. "How is this achievable?" he murmured to himself. How could an animal so inherently untamed, so intensely self-reliant, display such incredible softness, such profound awareness, such faith? The notion rendered him speechless, entirely humbled. In that intense instant, he recognized with certainty precisely how exceptional, how wondrous this encounter genuinely was. As the extended hours of the tempest gradually went by, David stayed thoroughly astounded by the sight. The female bobcat, constantly alert, maintained one gaze on her cherished babies and the other on him. Her whole demeanor displayed a quality of laboriously gained faith, yet beneath that, an unwavering, intense guardianship. And here's when it became still more astonishing. At a certain moment, she rose up, extending elegantly, and moved, measured and deliberate, across toward the cooking space. She halted right at the border of the surface, rotating back to regard him, her hearing organs moderately lifted, nearly as though she was courteously requesting approval. David, his thoughts hurrying to interpret her wordless appeal, reflexively seized a dish and placed a modest portion of remaining prepared poultry on it. "Is this your desire?" he inquired softly. He gently positioned it down on the ground beside her. She approached nearer, warily, detecting the nourishment. Then, with that identical characteristic precise attention, she grasped it and transported it back to the refuge, meticulously sharing it between her starving babies. The tempest beyond displayed utterly no indication of subsiding. Snow accumulated tall against the panes, concealing them, and the wind pursued its perpetual savage wail, scratching at the actual base of the dwelling. But within, the comfortable warmth from the fireplace and the thoroughly exceptional connection that was silently developing between person and creature produced an environment that seemed profoundly dreamlike, nearly enchanted. The dancing flame glow appeared to project a gentle enchantment across the space, mellowing the severe boundaries of actuality. And as the hours progressed, David grasped something that established deep in his core. By unlocking his entrance, by assisting this Bobcat group, he had assumed a duty much larger than he had ever anticipated. The pure, harsh delicacy of existence in the wilderness, particularly in circumstances like these, was abruptly horrifyingly concrete to him. He was unable to simply release them back into that howling beast of a tempest. They urgently required duration, security, and heat to heal. And unbelievably, he was their sole prospect. Throughout the following several hours, the female Bobcat's conduct persisted to thoroughly astound him. She was exceptionally cautious not to harm anything in his dwelling, even employing her paw to softly relocate a dropped covering back onto the refuge mound. The babies, now heated and more lively, started cautiously investigating their close environment. But here's the genuinely remarkable aspect. They didn't behave like standard wilderness creatures. They appeared to instinctively grasp the limits of the area. They remained near the soothing warmth of the fireplace, cautiously preventing ascending or damaging the furnishings. Their small paws touched softly on the timber ground, their actions wary, yet brimming with pure inquisitiveness, as though they also grasped the holiness of this brief protected location. David merely was unable to accept what he was observing. The mental capacity, the consciousness, the absolute being of the female Bobcat were dissimilar to anything he had previously experienced. She even appeared to interact with him quietly through her physical signals. A tilt of her skull, a movement of her rear appendage, a specific expression displaying requirements or recognitions. At a certain moment, she rotated to regard the tiniest baby who was falling somewhat behind its livelier siblings, with a gentle rumbling sound that resembled more a mother's soft utterance. She softly pushed it to the heat of the coverings, her powerful maternal drive emanating from her each motion. But at last, gratefully, the tempest did start to diminish. The wind reduced its violence. The snow halted its perpetual assault. The female Bobcat, detecting the shift, gradually rose up, extending her muscular form, an obvious indication. It was the moment. She pushed each of her babies lovingly, prompting them to the entrance. David approached, his core burdened with a combination of sorrow and comprehension, and unlocked it gradually. The harsh, freezing air flowed back inside, causing him to quiver intensely after hours in the heat. The babies wavered initially, small wilderness beings abruptly unwilling to abandon their protected shelter. Their tiny paws descended into the thick snow on the deck, their gentle, hesitant sounds nearly vanished in the remaining, intense, stinging wind. But the female Bobcat was calm, steadfast. With soft nudges, she prompted them ahead, recalling them of their untamed dwelling. "You must return to your proper place," David spoke softly, his speech burdened with sentiment. And then arrived an instant that would be etched into David's recollection eternally. Before she advanced into the snow herself, the female Bobcat rotated back. She gazed straight at David, then with amazing deliberation, extended a paw and positioned it gently on his limb. The contact was rapid, momentary yet charged. A significant, wordless instant of bond that thoroughly surpassed Kind's. Her gaze, occupied totally with that incredible appreciation, appeared to convey a sincere gratitude that no person's expressions could possibly hope to match. "Gratitude to you also," David murmured, his speech breaking with sentiment. Then, as silently as they had come, the Bobcat family disappeared into the snowy woodland, their lovely shapes merging into the limitless white terrain. David remained in the unsealed entrance, observing until they were thoroughly invisible, consumed by the turning snow and timber. The quietness that descended seemed weighty, yet not hollow. The heat they had delivered remained after they had departed. This unbelievable morning would remain with him eternally, etched into his spirit. It wasn't merely a tale of endurance. It was a tale of an exceptional bond created in a harsh Montana winter. This encounter instructed David that kindness recognizes no divisions between kinds and that the untamed realm contains depths we are solely starting to grasp. Did you like this story? Would you have opened your door to help them? Let us know in the comments below. If you like this story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video.